everyone, and welcome back to the Be Europe show. I'm Harry.
And I'm Mireia from Eurodesk, and from now on I will be the new co-host of the show together with Harry. We are really happy to be here again in the 8th episode of Be Europe, and today we will travel virtually to Belgium, which is the home of some comic characters like the Smurf.
And I have an easy question to start with. Can you name the capital of Belgium?
I'm not really sure I can do that. I'm just kidding. The capital of Belgium is Brussels, and I'm actually in Brussels because here is the office of eurodeskbrusselslink. But Harry, did you know that the region of Brussels functions in a completely bilingual way?
I did know that. I'm unfortunately not in Brussels at the moment. I'm in sunny Dublin, but I have been to Brussels before. I've been lucky enough to visit the headquarters of the European Union in Brussels, and I did know that the capital is bilingual and there's 3 official languages, all which I find extremely difficult, and they're French, Dutch, and German.
Yeah, I think they are really difficult. Maybe because I'm Spanish, for me the French is a bit more easy. But still, the pronunciation, it's really difficult for me. But I think now that you said that you do a lot of trips to Brussels, it's the perfect way to practice them. So you can maybe go and order the traditional dish and see how it goes. Eat some mussels with rice and mayonnaise, which is the traditional dish. Or if you prefer sweets, there's a lot of waffles and amazing chocolate. But what you cannot miss is the beer. Did you know that Belgium have the more variety of beers in the world?
I didn't know that, and it's funny because in Ireland we love beer, so I've always tasted a few while I was over, but I didn't know that they had the most variety in the world. And I actually only learned the other day that in Zantern Airport in Belgium, it's the place where the most chocolate is sold. And also Café Delirium in Brussels holds the Guinness World Record for the largest numbers of beer on offer, with 2004 obtained in 2004.
Yeah, that's crazy. Actually, I did this mistake of going to Delirium and ask the waiter for a recommendation. He looked at me saying, "Do you know how many beers do we have here?" I was like, "Oh, sorry." But if we talk about Belgium, I think that we also have to talk about the festivals. Do you think so? I think they have a lot. And actually, Tomorrowland, which is the biggest and most famous electronic music festival in the world, was born and takes place every year in Belgium in a village called Boom.
Wow. That sounds awesome. I think I'll need to take a visit sometime to Boom, to Tomorrowland. But I think for now, I'll have to add that to my bucket list, and we should probably move on to introduce today's guest, Bob.
Yeah, let's welcome Bob. Hi, Bob.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello,
Bob.
welcome.
Actually, it's pretty funny that you're talking about boom, because it sounds like an explosion, but boom actually means in Dutch boom is a tree. Yeah. Boom is tree.
Ah, okay. So it's boom, not boom.
Yeah, it's boom, not boom.
Okay, that's my horrible. Yeah, my horrible pronunciation. So sorry to the people of Boom. Okay, Bob. I think the best way to start is by getting you maybe to just introduce yourself, if you don't mind.
Yes, of course. I am Bob. I'm 20 years old. I live in Belgium, in a village right above Antwerp. And up until the summer, I was studying interactive multimedia design at the Thomas More University College. But now I have officially graduated, and I'm pursuing my way into the freelance world.
Okay, interesting. And what in the freelance world are you hoping to do?
I am a digital creative. That's what I like to call myself. So mostly I do photography and video for businesses, but I also direct live streaming events. And currently I'm also working on a podcast series for a company. So it's, as long as it's digital and creative, it's something I can do.
That explains the setup. So we can see that you have your microphone, you have the proper setup for podcasting.
Exactly.
So you know your stuff. You're not an amateur.
Exactly. I know how to work with a microphone.
And Bob, you participated in a youth exchange. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Yes, I went to Georgia, actually, for 10 days. for a youth exchange called Follow the Rainbow. There were people from Belgium, Spain, Italy, Georgia, of course, Latvia, Ukraine, and Turkey. It was a youth exchange organized by Youths, which is a Belgian organization, and ICPI Georgia, which was the local organizing partner in Georgia. And the actual purpose of the exchange was to learn gender-sensitive skills and further expand our knowledge about gender issues, human rights, sexual health, and the common situation of the LGBTQ plus community all around Europe.
That's really interesting. But can you tell us maybe what is a youth exchange, like quickly?
A youth exchange is, I think, mostly a short exchange. So not for like a whole year or like 6 months or something. It can be like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It has a time limit, but I don't know it by heart. But my exchange was only 10 days. And it's always about a certain topic. And the topic has to be something the European Union thinks is important, because the European funds all the youth exchanges, and they need to approve a youth exchange. And this one was about the queer community, about the LGBTQ plus community, but it could be about mental health or discovering yourself. There are a lot of different topics you can do a youth exchange about.
Kind of open for everybody and all different interests.
Yes, there are also always a couple of countries that can apply for the youth exchange. I think they always select certain countries, so not everyone can join every youth exchange. But if you're from a European Union country, you can participate in most of them. But for example, Georgia isn't part of the European Union, but it is a program country, so they're allowed to organize youth exchanges in their country, but they always need to have a partner from the European Union to organize it. That's why Belgium is the organizing partner for this exchange.
Well, that's really interesting. And I suppose the first question that kind of comes to my mind about that is, how do you learn about an opportunity like that? How do you discover that opportunity?
Well, I'm a member of a working group of the Flemish Youth Council, and we're working on the topic of equal chances. And the person that was working for the Flemish Youth Council and was also leading the working group sent out a couple of interesting projects which we could join, all of the members of the working group, to gather information about the topic of equal chances, and then to assemble all that input to formulate eventually an official advice for the Flemish government. And as a part of gathering insights about the current issues of the LGBTQ plus community, I got the chance to join the exchange. Nobody else wanted to join, and I was thinking about it, but I also was a bit scared. And then after Youths, the organizing partner in Belgium, after they answered most of my questions and insecurities, I was convinced to join the experience, and then I just went for it.
What made you curious? So what made you ask those questions? So you've seen it and you go, okay, this is something I'm maybe interested in. A lot of people would have thought, okay, maybe you and a couple of friends went, but it was only you who was interested. So what kind of sparked that interest for you?
I was reading the brochure about the project. I'm really invested in learning more about the queer community and the LGBTQ plus community all around Europe. So that was a trigger by itself. But there was also like another project similar to this that was being organized in Italy. But that was in January and not in the time that I was going. And I was thinking, oh, Italy, maybe I want to go there. But Georgia, it's pretty far. It's next to Russia. It's beyond the Black Sea. It's pretty far from home. I haven't been away from home that far yet. So there were a lot of insecurities and stuff. But there was something like pulling me and triggering me to go. And I wanted to learn the other people and wanted to learn more about the queer community. So I just at one point when they answered all of my questions, I was like, okay, now I can go.
You were sold.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
It's good also like to have support for other people that can help you with these insecurities and give you like the information that you need. And also like it sounds that even though you had maybe a lot of doubts at the beginning, for your look, I think it was a really nice experience. So my question, it goes a bit in this way, like what's the most valuable thing that you got from this experience?
Well, I got to meet a lot of wonderful people and great people from all around Europe. It's just so nice to have friends everywhere in the world, actually, certainly in Europe. So I think friendship is one of the most valuable things I got out of this experience, but also you develop a broader view on the world. I think by meeting people from different countries with different cultures, it makes you understand the rest of the world better. So I think friendship and the broader view on the world are both the most valuable things I got out of this experience.
And did this experience in some way impact you, like for the future in your life right now?
At first, I wasn't really being my complete self in Georgia. I was like hiding a bit behind the fact that I was just there for the Flemish Youth Council as a representative, so in a pretty formal way. But like after 3 days or something, you put away that mask and you're just yourself, because it was such an open vibe and an open group with loving people. You just had to be yourself to fit in, actually. And I think they showed me, like the whole group, that it's important to always be yourself and fight for the right to be yourself. And I think that now that's a big part of me. It was always a part of me also before the trip and the experience, but that awareness has grown and has become a proper part of how I now express my opinion about certain matters. So I think that's how it has impacted my life.
It's really interesting, and a lot of people speak about how they develop and grow as people, I suppose, when they're on a part of European programs. And I think the Youth Exchange is just one of the many where, you know, you get the opportunity to do some good, but you also learn so much about yourself as well, which is really, really promising.
Exactly.
I think a big question that we always ask on the podcast to all our guests is about the advantages of being a European. And you're obviously a very active young European. So in your view or your opinion, what do you think are the biggest advantages of being a European?
I think that depends on how you define European, because there's a big difference between like being an actual citizen within the European Union and just being like a European. Because I was so surprised by how pro EU people from Georgia, Turkey, and Ukraine were. They were like feeling more European than some of my friends, although they are not part of the European Union. And that's what made me realize more what kind of advantages we do have being a European Union citizen then. There are so many things that are being arranged for us by the European Commission and the European Parliament. And that was... that we, as Europeans, we find it pretty normal. We just think it's a normal thing in life, but it actually is a big advantage for us to have that. For example, we can just apply for every Erasmus Plus project. We can apply for an Interrail Global Pass to discover Europe. Things like approving medicines or vaccines, it's all arranged on an EU level, which is such an advantage. Also, how we can just gather all the countries and decide to do something as one. I think it's pretty beautiful and a pretty big advantage that some other countries don't have because they're not part of Europe or the European Union.
Exactly. And it's actually, like you said, for me, at least, and it was also the same case, I didn't really realize of all the advantages that we have being in Europeans until I did my Erasmus and I went to another country and I meet people like you that they are not from European Union or not from Europe. And I was like, wow, actually, we don't realize how lucky we are.
Yeah, and they will tell you. They will tell you that you have that advantages.
Exactly. At that time, we just had it from granted. And then just the simple fact that was the punchline for me. Somebody told me, I wish I had your passport. And I was like, oh, wow, actually, it's true. Like, I'm so lucky and I never realized about this.
Yeah, there were like people from Ukraine saying, oh, I want to marry you so I can get a European passport.
Exactly.
They were laughing about it, but it's their reality. They really want to be a part of the European Union because we have all those advantages.
Yeah, exactly. And like it goes a bit with this, my question, that it's also another question that we ask everybody. It's what does it mean for you to be a European?
For me, being a European is a part of my identity, or it has become a part of my identity. I don't feel much like a Belgian person or a Flemish person. I like to see myself as a European, or like a combination of European, Belgian, and Flemish. But for me, it means that you have an international mind, and that you're open to discover other countries and to meet and to get to know other people from not only Europe but all around the world. That like international view and kind of a way of thinking is what means for me to be European.
And how do you think that other young people in Belgium see Europe?
I think that depends on who you're asking, because not everyone is as much educated about Europe and the European Union. For example, my brother isn't really aware of what Europe is and what they do. He probably think it's fine to live in Europe, but is much more of a fan of Europe than that. And I think that my brother isn't the only young person in Belgium that sees it that way. But for example, at the Flemish Youth Council, I have met a lot of European-minded people, and they definitely see how important Europe is, and they definitely think it's something positive, because like the older generation, they can speak about Europe or the European Union like a bad way or negative way, blah, blah, blah. They want to have more power, they want to expand, blah, 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 blah. But I think there are more young people that see the positive in the EU. And in general, I think a lot of people in Belgium think positive about Europe and the EU.
Yeah, actually, like for me, also the EU concept in Spain, at least in my group of friends, it was maybe not that strong, also because maybe we live really apart, not in a big city and stuff like that. But when I came here, also maybe because I'm in Brussels, it was this huge feeling, because there's institutions here. I remember that I live here the European Day, and I was like, that's crazy. Actually, it's a big sentiment and a feeling, and a lot of people like join and actually discuss about this and talk about this. So it's curious that, I mean, yeah, of course, it depends on the people that you talk with, but I thought that maybe here the feeling was really, really strong. So it's interesting to see from your point of view.
I think it's this. I think exactly the same.
Yeah, it is, and I think I probably took for granted that I always, when I think of Belgium, I think of Brussels, and I think the heart of the European Union. But just because the institutions are housed in Brussels doesn't mean that there's a huge and overwhelming, and everybody supports the European Union or the work of the EU. So I think that's really interesting, and that's not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. It's just a reality, and I think it's interesting to hear those different insights. I'm curious, Bob, to know about your views on travel. So you've obviously had the opportunity to go on the youth exchange and to go abroad and see different parts of the world. How important do you think it is to travel in terms of gaining a bigger picture or view of the world?
Well, I said it earlier as well, but I think it allows you to gain more knowledge about how other people live and think. It's the only way to do that, I think, by traveling and experiencing it. It allows you to understand a lot of global issues a lot better by traveling. You can understand the views of other people better with other opinions. And in general, I just think it makes you a better human being just by traveling and discovering new people and meeting new people.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. It's very true.
Yeah, I think it really opens your mind too. Like you discover different ways of seeing life, and not all it's white and black. So there's positive things everywhere, and you can learn from everything.
Exactly. That's also how I think about it.
And coming back to your experience in Georgia, during the youth exchange, you live with people from all over Europe. So did you see a lot of difference between the young people of these different countries?
Well, the Spanish were always late. they had they had lazy timing. They're like, we still have 5 minutes left for the activity start. Oh, we can still drink a coffee. In countries with Belgian people who were like, oh, we have 5 minutes left. We need to hurry because we need to get down in time for the activities. but other than that, I think I realized that we are all young people, and in the core, we all face the same issues, insecurities that are part of growing up and becoming an adult. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things I learned in Georgia. No matter where you're from, in the core, we are all the same. We all have our own dreams we want to pursue, but not everyone has the same environment or support to chase those dreams. So I think we are much the same, but it depends on where you live, the chances you get to chase your dreams.
That's really interesting. And that is a point that comes up quite regularly on the podcast, is that a lot of people recognize that when they travel and they get involved in these programs, is that while we may live miles apart and we may speak different languages and be from different areas, that actually there's so much that actually connects us. And I think the availability then after that of resources and different tools and supports to go and pursue our dreams is probably the only thing that differentiates us. So I think it's really interesting. A lot of people have commented about that before, which is that really the biggest shock, or I suppose the biggest insight, is that we are actually all the same. And I think it's a really nice sentiment because it just shows how connected we really are. It's a really nice one.
It's exactly how I felt and how we all felt within those 10 days, especially we were like getting to know each other, and we were like so involved in the project and in meeting each other and becoming friends and becoming a group as one. And then you realize at this moment we're a group of people enjoying ourselves, and there's not really a big difference between me and someone from Turkey and then someone from Latvia. We're like all just having fun and doing the same things and going for the same goal, and that's something so beautiful. And I miss that because I'm not in Georgia anymore, but that it was such a great thing to experience.
And I think it's a really nice mentality as well. I think from the next generation of young Europeans, is that we are so big. We believe so much in the idea that we are all the same and that we should all be connected, and that there's not much that separates us. And it's a nice way of, I suppose, bringing us all closer together, is that we are more open-minded and accepting and understanding that there's not much that separates us. And I think it brings it nicely onto, I suppose, the question about, I suppose, your views on cultural diversity in Europe. What do you think about cultural diversity in Europe at the moment?
Well, as a part of cultural enrichment, I think cultural diversity is so important. In every way, it makes you understand the world better. And I think cultural diversity has always been a thing in Europe, because there are like some people who are a bit more old. They can say like, oh, diversity, blah, blah, more people from other countries, blah, blah, blah. But Europe has always been a place with cultural diversity, and where people from all around the world come together. And I think it's very important to keep it that way, and to not promote how do you say, separation and stuff, and like everybody needs to go to their own country and stay there and blah 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 blah, because then you won't get to know all the other people, and you will never develop a broader view on the world. So I think it's very important.
Yeah, I actually agree 100%, because if we were all the same, it would be also boring. Like it's what I love more is to go to another country and try different things that I never tried in my country and that I could never do because they are not from my culture, but still feeling like home because people, it's really welcoming. I think like this is the perfect mix. And like now I'm going to change a bit the topic. It will still go regarding your experience in the youth exchange, but now we are moving to another topic. So before you starting the youth exchange, the location of the place where it was going to be was kept in secret for a long time for reasons of tolerance. How made this feel?
Well, it was one of the main reasons why I was still doubting to join, because I didn't know Georgia before. I hadn't been that far from home before either. So to read in the brochure that the exact location has to be kept secret doesn't really make you feel more safe to go on the trip. But then at a certain point, I realized that's the exact reason why I should go. A country like Georgia needs projects like this to let people see that we're able to do things like a queer camp in Georgia. It's so much needed in Georgia. And that's why I realized, okay, we have to keep it a secret, but it's for our own safety. I think I will be safe. Everything will be all right, but we need to do this. It's very important for them. And I also talked a lot to the Georgian people as well, of course, and they think it's very important that we're doing this, and that people from Belgium and Spain and Italy are coming to their country just to show that we're together.
This is actually a new learning for me, because I didn't know that was the case, the youth exchange. So I didn't realize they keep the location secret. So when do you find out? What moment did you find out where you were going to go?
Well, we all knew that we were going to Georgia, of course, but I think it was maybe the week before we left. I knew the exact location where we were going. We were all getting picked up in Tbilisi, which is the capital city, by a bus. So we were just all going together to the place that we were staying. Everyone was traveling from other places of the world, of course. Some people stayed, like we arrived the night before, so we stayed in Tbilisi for one night, and then we all went together to the place. And then also during the project, we couldn't share anything on social media or our stories or something on Instagram with a location tag or something, or very like typical places that people would recognize, just because there are still groups, hate groups in Georgia that target people like us, queer people. And that's why a lot of people weren't feeling comfortable during the camp as well, because when I was there, I was like, okay with it and stuff, and I wasn't sharing the location and stuff, but I felt safe. But there were like people from Italy, for example, that were still like feeling unsafe, and for reasons, because like a week before or 2 weeks before, the parliament in Italy like refused a law that was going to like say that hate against the LGBTQ people, blah blah blah, would be punished harder and blah blah blah. It was just refused in the parliament, and they were like applauding for it, and they were like protesting about it, and they were attacked by the police and stuff. So they had like a violent experience weeks before. So they were in Georgia, having to keep locations safe. So and we're still feeling unsafe, and I understand that.
Yeah, and I think that's a big wake-up call as well, and an insight into, I suppose, Europe has progressed so much, and the EU has progressed so much, but we're still so far behind in a lot of ways, and our mindset. And Italy's a very big country. There's lots of people living in Italy, and for that to happen, and for something like that to happen, and then for you to go on a youth exchange, and for safety reasons not being able to share the exact location, I think it's a huge wake up and insight into just how much still needs to be done. And I think that nicely brings to the question. I'm curious to know, from your own point of view, firstly, how do you see acceptance of LGBTQIA plus in Belgium, firstly, and then on a wider scale in Europe overall?
In Belgium, I think we're pretty okay, especially if I compare Belgium to other countries within Europe. But still, we see an increase in violence against LGBTQ plus people also in Belgium. So that's why I think politicians in Belgium shouldn't stop caring about it. We need to keep people aware. And that's also why I think Pride is still very important, to keep organizing, to keep creating awareness about it. But to give like a general view on the situation in Europe, that's just not possible, because there's still so much differences within Europe. I went on the trip to discover all the differences, and there are a lot of differences. For example, Spain is actually pretty up there in the acceptance. They're like, okay, there also needs to be there's also work that needs to be done in Spain, but Italy is still such a mess, and they're so close to each other, especially with the Vatican in Italy still having a lot of influence politically there. So yeah, I think there's still a lot of work that needs to be done all around Europe.
Yeah, and that's, I suppose I see it here in Ireland too, because we had, our last Prime Minister was openly gay, and I would have thought that was a hugely progressive step forward to have an openly gay elected Prime Minister. But then we still see a huge surge in hate crimes against members of the LGBTQI plus community. And I think that's where, I suppose, there's that balance there, is when we think we're making steps forward, there's still so much work that needs to be done. And I'm curious to know, from a younger person's perspective then, Bob, do you think that there's more acceptance? Do you think that they're more open and willing to accept people for just who they are rather than, I suppose, who they love?
I do think there's more acceptance from young people than from the older generation, but there's also a bigger contrast nowadays between people that do accept everything and people that just don't accept us as a queer community at all. And I think that has a lot to do with visibility, because the more people get confident to be themselves and out themselves as themselves, the more people can react and act to that, act with violence and stuff, because we're just more visible. So I do see a generation with more acceptance coming, but I don't think, and that's maybe a sad thought, but I don't think the people that don't accept us are ever gonna disappear, unfortunately. But I hope and I think that once we will be in the majority, of course.
Yeah, and do you think that's why Pride is so important now, probably more than ever before, to try and, I suppose, open up people's eyes to the reality and the need for more acceptance?
Yeah, exactly. Because there's a discussion about Pride new since this year, especially about the Pride in Amsterdam, because it has become so commercial and so much party and stuff and more festival like and blah blah blah. And also the Antwerp Pride. I went to the Antwerp Pride. It's very much like a party. It's very much fun. But now people are raising questions, and people are asking questions about, okay, but we cannot forget where Pride originates from. And I think it's important to talk about it, but I also think it's important to keep the combination with pride, meaning partying, but also protest. And maybe I think that's something we need to accentuate more during next Pride events or something. But I think we need to keep organizing it to express that thought.
Exactly. It's like your way also to have visibility. It's true that maybe now recently it's more like a party, but it's also a party because you are like celebrating who you are.
Exactly.
So it also has to be like this. So I hope that it's going to be more visible and more visible. Now you have a lot of mediums to make this message visible with social media and all this stuff. There's more visibility. So that's why maybe also it increased acceptance, and I hope it will grow. And I hope in this case you are wrong, and at some point everybody will accept you. That would be the best and ideal. And
I hope so.
Yeah, and now that we are talking about the future, this is the year of the European Year of Youth. So I want to ask you, what are your plans for this special year and for the future coming?
Well, this year, I'm just going to fully focus on my career as a freelance digital creative. I just graduated from school. I see it as my project for the upcoming year. See how it goes. See if I can live by just being a freelancer. And then after a year, we will evaluate and see if I can continue being a freelancer. So that's my project for the upcoming year.
It's a big project.
Yeah, it is. And also we are going to finish our advice for the Flemish government, of course, with the Flemish Youth Council, because now we're going to talk with experts. We're in that phase now. And after we have talked to the experts, we're going to formulate our points of advice and then finish the advice and send it to the Flemish government. So that's also an important project for the upcoming year.
Definitely, and it's very clear. Everyone listening will I think understand that you're somebody who's very active, you're very engaged, in your work and what you're doing. I'm curious to know, from your point of view, what do you think needs to be done for young people in the current context? What can we do to better support and encourage and motivate and enable young people?
I just think young people should be given as much chances as possible to discover who they are and who they want to be, what they want to do in their life. For example, just by giving young people the chance to travel Europe and discover themselves and the rest of the world. So, like, international railing should be better. Like in the rail passes you can apply for from the EU. It's a good initiative, but not everyone gets the chance to do that. Maybe it should be a right for young people to discover the Europe and to discover themselves. So I think that's something they can work on.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think everybody should get a free pass at some stage in their teens or their early 20s to go and explore as much of Europe as they want to.
Exactly.
I don't think that. I think accessibility needs to be a bigger thing. It's very important. The question, the last question, and it's my favorite question because the answers are always so different and interesting and inspiring at the same time. No pressure, but what advice would you give to other young people who are maybe listening to this today?
Just be yourself and fight for the right to be yourself. I got back from Georgia with much more activism inside me than before. It doesn't need to be, you don't need to be out in public to protest all the time. There's so many ways to protest and to express that you're not agreeing with something, but there are people in this world that don't have the ability to fight for their right to be themselves. So if you're confident and able to do so, my advice would be to do so. Please do it. Be yourself and fight for the right to be yourself.
I love that. And there's a quote from the American poet Amanda Gorman, and it says, "Your silence speaks for no one." So you need to use your voice to speak up for those who might necessarily have a voice and to use your platform. So I think that's a really nice note to finish on, Bob. And thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story. It's been hugely inspiring and insightful. I think a lot of people will be Googling youth exchanges after they finish listening to find out where they can go.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you very much. And also thank you, Harry, for your comment. I think it was the perfect ending for this program. So thank you again for being part of this show. And see you all in the next episode.
Yeah, thanks a million, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.